Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and mock up the eye holes again so that I can cut them out. All right, let's see if that works. Yeah, so we can see the marks that I made inside the mask if I can get the lighting right. And so now we're ready to make sure that my pupil distances are enough, because I'm just going to cut out the most minimal holes I can. And so I want to make sure, I measure the distance between my pupils, and then I make sure that these eye holes are even. I'll split the difference if one's higher than the other, and then I will make sure they're the right distance apart, because it's not just that I get around my eyes with this. I want to get more close to the center where my, what they call, I think it's called your pupillary distance. So that's the next step. Right now I'm using the pencil to measure the distance between my eyes. So I'll just erase the pieces in here that I don't need, all my extra markings. If I can't get rid of them, I may come back over and paint over them later. We'll just see. Because when I do these eye holes, I may end up having to break the paint out again anyway. And I still want to come back through and put in my clear glaze. I've also been looking at the pink and stuff that I accidentally got on the teeth somehow. And I'm thinking about leaving it. Because it actually ends up looking a little bit like blood or something like that. So I may just leave it on there. I'm not sure 100%. I can always come back and sand it off at any time if I want to. So I'm not super concerned. But it's kind of nice in a certain way. All right, now it's ready for surgery. Now I just need to get a drill bit that is the appropriate size. We'll start off with a small one, and that's called a pilot hole. So I'll start off with a little bitty one, and that's how we'll get started. Find the center of my hole here. About like that. Same on this side. Then we'll move up to a little bit bigger bit. Maybe something like this. Right here. Alright, phase 2. So I'll let the tip of my drill bit, if you see there's a little point on here, I'll let that rest inside that pilot hole. That way I get a straight cut, and that pilot hole keeps the mask from ripping and tearing, makes a much smoother hole. Now, if I can, I guess I'll do one more intermediate size before I go full blast. We'll see. We may not even need anything beyond this one. So we'll just have to see. I'll test it on. We'll see if that works, if I can see through it. Okay, here goes the moment of truth. We'll see if this works. Okay, I can actually see out of both holes. Pretty good. Okay, enough fun. All right, that works out really, really well. And didn't I say that the eye holes are much lower than we thought they would be? Okay, so that's for several different reasons. But nothing's gonna fit right. Nothing's gonna be as good as actually just putting the mask on and seeing where your eyes actually are. Okay, you can guess all day long, and you can be wrong all day long. Okay, this is the mesh I'm going to use to back the eyes with. Now, this mesh is actually a little too big. I prefer a different mesh, but I'm going to have to work with what I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out some sections of this, and I'll try to cut them out roughly equal size. We'll use a rectangle because that's easy. That's easy to measure. Easy to see if it's the same. Okay. All right, so we're something around that. I will overlay this on top of my other mesh. Try to line up one side. That way, at least I can save myself cutting one side. Work smarter, not harder. All right, there we go. Now we got two of these identical things, and what I'm going to do, like I said, the holes are actually they're too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double this over a few times, and what that's going to do is tighten up that pattern, and it'll make it a little thicker too. So you see how it's starting to get, the holes in there are starting to get thinner and thinner, or smaller in diameter, not thinner. All right. Now when I hold this up to my eye, I can see out, but people will not be able to see in from the other side. So I will paint this. First I'll have to prime it with spray paint, with a primer, and then I'll spray paint it black so that people can't tell the difference between it and the rest of the mask. This will just be hot. I'll put a little hot glue around it then, and then come in from the back side of the mask and place it in. All right. Now the reason I have to use primer first is because paint does not stick to metal. Primer will stick to metal, and then paint will stick to primer. So that's why we use a primer. So we'll look at that. All right, so here we are with our paint. Now this is a gloss black. I prefer a matte black. And here is our primer. So we gotta shake this really good. And this could be a trick painting this. Now when you spray paint, what you want to do is you want to stay a few inches away from what you're spray painting, and you want to keep a constant steady motion, because if you ever slow down, you're going to get runs. So there we go. All right, there we go. I'll go ahead. I think I can go ahead and flip this over. They look like checks or something. These are moving away from me. Soon I'll have my whole table painted. That'll be nice. Okay, and then I will put on a layer of black paint. So in about 10, 15 minutes, this will be dry enough, and it'll take another coat. It'll take a coat of the black here, and that will, it'll be tacky enough then that it can hold that. It can take another coat. Now we're ready to put in our little screens for our eyes, for our eye holes. So I'll go ahead and begin that process. Well, that's nice. It just kind of stands up on its own now that it has so many teeth. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some glue around this to hold it in place. Alright, that's one. No, two. And now that that's in place, I'm going to go ahead and put a little coating around the outside edge here, just to kind of make sure that none of these little pokey bits might get somebody's face when they wear the mask. So now we should be ready to go. Let's look at it from the other side while it dries. Okay, so now we just need to touch up the little exposed white paper that's showing. So what I'm doing, I'm just taking blue and adding it to black. Remember, we want this to look really cool here in the center. I mix over here in a separate container, so that's something a lot of people mess up on when they mix paint in an entry-level art class. They'll just take all the black and mix it in with all the blue, for instance, and then if it's not right, then it takes 6 or 7 gallons of blue to change what they've now created, or vice versa. And so you end up then with like tons and tons of paint, and you don't need that much. So I like to mix in the middle. So we'll just get rid of these little exposed areas. Alright. There we go. Not bad, not too noticeable. Probably be even less noticeable once it dries and it's not so shiny. And if it's still too shiny, I'll go back and put a matte finish on it. After inspecting the masks, I did not like how deep the screens were recessed in behind the eye holes, so I decided to put little indentations in them so that they would be more flush with the eye hole. So I built a boilerplate so that I could hammer the wire mesh out to the right size and shape. After that, I painted and reinstalled it the same way I did the first go around. Thank you for your time. I hope this helps.